Behind this groundbreaking family drama's brief 3-week run lies a fascinating story of NFL stars turned Renaissance men, television's most disastrous programming era, democratic voting systems, and a director who barely escaped Hitler's Germany, all wrapped in a show that made history before vanishing into obscurity. Prepare to discover the shocking truths about America's first black family drama. Fact 1. Shortest-lived historical milestone. Harris & Company holds a bittersweet place in television history as the first weekly American TV drama series centered on an African-American family, yet it vanished from the airwaves after just 4 episodes spanning only 3 weeks. The show premiered on NBC on March 15, 1979, and aired its final episode on April 5th of that same year, making it one of the shortest-lived series in network television history. While sitcoms featuring black families like Good Times and What's Happening had already found success on television, no network had ever attempted a serious dramatic series focusing on the everyday struggles and triumphs of an African-American family until Harris & Company broke that barrier. The series starred Bernie Casey as Mike Harris, a widowed father of 5 children who relocates his family from Detroit, Michigan to Los Angeles, California to start fresh after the death of his wife. The show tackled real-world issues facing a working-class black family trying to build a new life, with Mike opening a garage business with his white partner Harry Foreman while juggling the challenges of single parenthood. Each episode ran for a full hour, giving the showroom to explore dramatic storylines rather than the quick-hit comedy format audiences were more familiar with when it came to black-led television programs. Despite its groundbreaking status, the show disappeared so quickly that many television historians and reference guides don't even acknowledge its existence. Only 4 episodes ever made it to air before NBC pulled the plug, cutting short what could have been a milestone moment in television representation. The show's rapid cancellation meant that this historic first barely had time to make an impact, leaving it as little more than a footnote in TV history books. Fact 2. The lowest-rated show of its season. Harris & Company didn't just fail with audiences, it achieved the dubious honor of becoming the absolute lowest-rated primetime series on any major U.S. broadcast network during the entire 1978 to 1979 television season. The show ranked 114th out of 114 programs, landing in dead last place with a rating of 7.6 and a share of 12, meaning that on average, only 7.6% of all television households were tuning in. And of those households actually watching TV at that time, only 12% had Harris & Company on their screens. To put these numbers in perspective, a rating in the single digits during primetime was considered disastrous by network standards, and Harris & Company couldn't even crack double digits. The show was competing against established hits and other new programs during one of the most competitive periods in television history, and it simply couldn't find an audience willing to give this new type of family drama a chance. Networks in the late 1970s relied heavily on ratings to determine which shows lived or died, and there was no room for patience with a program performing this poorly, especially during a season when NBC was already struggling to compete against ABC and CBS. The combination of unfamiliar dramatic territory, lack of promotional support, and poor time slot placement all contributed to the show's inability to connect with viewers. While the series was attempting something genuinely new by presenting a serious, dramatic look at black family life, audiences either didn't know about it or weren't interested in tuning in. The historically low ratings sealed the show's fate after just 4 episodes, making it not only a pioneering effort, but also one of the biggest flops of its era. Fact 3. Star Bernie Casey was a triple-threat Renaissance man. Bernie Casey, the star of Harris & Company, was far more than just an actor playing a working-class father on television. Before he ever stepped in front of a camera, Casey had already built a successful career as an NFL wide receiver, playing 6 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers and 2 seasons with the Los Angeles Rams, even earning a Pro Bowl selection in 1967 after catching 53 passes for 871 yards and 8 touchdowns. But what made Casey truly unusual was that he never saw football as his final destination, viewing it instead as what he called just a gig that would support his real passions for painting and poetry. Casey was a serious visual artist whose paintings were exhibited in galleries across Los Angeles and San Francisco, with his work collected by notable figures including the legendary poet Maya Angelou, who once said that his art makes my road less rocky and my path less crooked. His paintings were semi-abstract works that often incorporated poetic text and reflected his thoughts on racial injustice and the African American experience, showing a depth and social consciousness that went far beyond what anyone expected from a former professional athlete. Even while playing in the NFL, Casey was selling his artwork to collectors, including actor Hope Lang and the Beverly Hills Public Library, proving that he was building his artistic reputation alongside his athletic career. Casey's dedication to the arts was so strong that he famously told the Washington Post in 1977 that football had limited the way people perceived him, showing his frustration that his intellectual and creative pursuits were overshadowed by his time on the field. For Casey, acting was just another creative outlet in a life filled with artistic expression. Fact 4. Casey published poetry before his first episode aired. Bernie Casey was already an established published author a full decade before Harris & Company ever made it to television, having released his first book of poetry and paintings through the major publishing house Doubleday in 1969. The book, titled Look at the People, Poems and Paintings, came out the exact same year that Casey made his acting debut in the film Guns of the Magnificent Seven, showing that he was launching both his literary and acting careers simultaneously, while most people still only knew him as a professional football player who had just retired from the Los Angeles Rams. The book combined Casey's visual artwork with his original poetry, giving readers a window into his thoughts on race, society, and the Black experience in America during a turbulent period of civil rights struggles and cultural change. Casey didn't stop with just one book either, as he went on to publish Where is the Revolution? And other poems in 1973, followed by Silent Screams in 1983, proving that his commitment to poetry wasn't just a one-time experiment, but a sustained artistic practice that ran parallel to his growing acting career. What makes this particularly remarkable is that Casey was juggling 3 completely different creative careers at once, working as a visual artist, a published poet, and an actor in both film and television throughout the 1970s. In 1971, he even produced an independent film called Bernie Casey, Black Artist, which focused on his thoughts and observations as a painter, showing just how seriously he took his artistic identity. By the time Harris & Company premiered in 1979, Casey had already built a legitimate reputation in the literary world that had nothing to do with football or Hollywood. Fact 5. The star had a master's degree in fine arts. While most professional football players spent their off-seasons resting or preparing for the next season, Bernie Casey was hitting the books and working toward an advanced degree in fine arts. During his years playing for the San Francisco 49ers, Casey made the decision to return to his alma mater, Bowling Green State University in Ohio, during every off-season to pursue a Master of Fine Arts degree, which he successfully completed in 1966 while still actively playing in the NFL. This wasn't a casual interest or a side hobby, but a serious academic commitment that required the same level of dedication and discipline that Casey brought to professional sports. Casey had originally attended Bowling Green on an athletic scholarship, excelling not only in football, but also as a record-breaking hurdler in track and field, even making it to the finals at the U.S. Olympic trials in 1960. But even as a college athlete, he was already deeply interested in the visual arts and knew that painting was where his true passion lay. The fact that he chose to spend his precious time away from football pursuing graduate-level studies in art, rather than simply enjoying his earnings or focusing solely on his athletic career, shows just how committed he was to developing himself as a serious artist. By the time Casey earned his MFA, he had essentially built 2 complete professional identities, one as an elite athlete competing at the highest level of American football, and another as a formally trained artist with the credentials to back up his creative ambitions. This educational background gave Casey the technical skills and theoretical knowledge to create artwork that was respected in galleries and collected by serious art enthusiasts, setting him apart from other athletes who dabbled in the arts as a casual pastime. Fact 6. Two former pro athletes starred together. Harris & Company had the unusual distinction of featuring not just one, but two former professional athletes in its main cast, creating an unexpected connection between the worlds of sports and television drama. While Bernie Casey brought his NFL experience to the role of Mike Harris, his co-star James Luisi, who played Mike's white business partner Harry Foreman, had his own professional sports background playing guard for the Baltimore Bullets in the NBA during the 1953 to 1954 season. At 6 feet 2 inches tall and 180 pounds, Luisi appeared in 31 games and averaged 3 points per game before his basketball career came to an end. Luisi's path from professional basketball to acting took him through military service in the U.S. Army during the Korean War, before he decided to pursue a completely different career. After his time in the Army, he attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and began building a career on Broadway, appearing in productions like Sweet Charity and Zorba before transitioning to television and film work. By the time he joined Harris & Company, Luisi had become a familiar face on television, particularly known for playing Lieutenant Doug Chapman on The Rockford Files, where he appeared in 23 episodes as the apoplectic foil to James Garner's detective character. The presence of two former professional athletes in the cast wasn't just a coincidence, but reflected a broader trend of athletes successfully transitioning into acting careers during the 1970s, when sports stardom could open doors in Hollywood. Both Casey and Luisi had proven that athletic careers didn't have to define them forever, and that with dedication and training, they could build entirely new professional identities in the entertainment industry. Fact 7. It debuted during TV's most disastrous season. Harris & Company had the misfortune of premiering during one of the most chaotic and disastrous periods in television history, when all three major networks engaged in an unprecedented programming war that resulted in massive casualties across the board. Between January and May of 1979, NBC, CBS, and ABC collectively launched 36 new series in just 5 months, flooding the airwaves with so many new shows that audiences couldn't possibly keep up with them all, and most programs were canceled within weeks of their debuts. Television historians have described this period as catastrophic, with the primetime battlefield littered with failed shows that barely had time to find an audience before being pulled off the air. The chaos of this mid-season period was driven by fierce competition between the networks, with each one desperately trying to find the next hit that would boost their ratings and attract advertisers. Shows were given little time to develop or build viewership, and network executives were quick to cancel anything that didn't immediately perform well in the ratings. Harris & Company premiered right in the middle of this bloodbath on March 15, 1979, alongside other forgettable series like Miss Winslow and Son, Dear Detective, and The Mary Tyler Moore Hour, most of which suffered the same fate of quick cancellation. The sheer number of new shows debuting during this compressed time frame meant that promotional budgets were spread thin, audiences were overwhelmed with choices, and individual programs struggled to stand out from the crowd. Harris & Company never really had a fair chance to prove itself or connect with viewers in an environment where networks were canceling shows after just a handful of episodes without any patience for slow growth. Fact 8. Part of Fred Silverman's Spring Wave disaster, Harris & Company was launched as part of NBC's so-called Spring Wave programming strategy, a desperate attempt by newly hired network president Fred Silverman to turn around the struggling network's dismal ratings through a flood of mid-season replacements. Silverman had joined NBC in 1978 after wildly successful tenures at CBS and ABC, where he had been responsible for hits like All in the Family, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Charlie's Angels, and Laverne and Shirley, earning him the nickname The Man with the Golden Gut from Time magazine. However, his magic touch completely abandoned him at NBC, where his 3-year tenure from 1978 to 1981 became legendary for all the wrong reasons, producing an astonishing string of expensive failures that nearly bankrupted the network. The spring wave that included Harris and Company was part of Silverman's frantic, throwing everything at the wall approach to programming, hoping that something would stick and pull NBC out of its ratings tailspin. But the strategy backfired spectacularly, as most of the shows in this wave disappeared almost as quickly as they appeared. Harris and Company found itself in the company of other notorious Silverman disasters from this period, including Super Train, an absurdly expensive train-based drama that cost millions and was canceled after just 9 episodes, Hello Larry, a sitcom so bad it became synonymous with failure, and Pink Lady and Jeff, a bizarre variety show starring a Japanese singing duo that lasted only 5 episodes and is now considered one of the worst shows in television history. The situation got so bad that Saturday Night Live star Al Franken openly mocked Silverman on the air in 1980. Fact 9. The company had democratic decision-making. The title Harris and Company wasn't just a catchy name, but actually referred to a unique family governance system that served as a central concept of the show, where all major decisions affecting the Harris household were made through democratic voting, with every family member getting an equal say, regardless of age. This meant that the family's move from Detroit to Los Angeles, which served as the premise for the entire series, was decided by putting it to a vote among Mike Harris and his 5 children, rather than having the father simply make the decision unilaterally as the head of household. In the Harris family, everyone from the oldest child down to 6-year-old Richard had a voice in shaping their collective future, and decisions were only made when a majority agreed on the course of action. This democratic approach to family decision-making was a remarkably progressive concept for 1979 television, especially for a show centered on a working-class family where traditional patriarchal authority might have been expected to dominate. The show emphasized that love alone wasn't enough to sustain the family, as reflected in the title of the TV movie that preceded the series, Love Is Not Enough, and instead highlighted the importance of responsibility, mutual respect, and shared decision-making in keeping the family unit strong and functional. By structuring the family as a company where everyone had voting rights, the show was making a subtle statement about equality, democracy, and the value of listening to children's perspectives rather than simply dictating to them. This participatory approach gave the younger characters agency and made them active participants in the family's journey rather than passive recipients of their father's decisions, setting Harris and Company apart from other family dramas of its era. Fact 10. Based on a TV movie nobody remembers. Harris and Company didn't start as an original series concept, but was actually spun off from a made-for-television movie called Love Is Not Enough that aired on NBC on June 12, 1978, nearly a full year before the series premiered. The TV movie starred Bernie Casey in the same role of Mike Harris and featured many of the same cast members who would later appear in the series, essentially serving as a pilot to test whether audiences would be interested in following this family's story on a weekly basis. The movie told the story of the Harris family's decision to leave Detroit for Los Angeles and their struggles to build a new life after the death of Mike's wife, setting up the premise that would carry over into the series. However, both the original TV movie and the series that followed have become so obscure that they've nearly vanished from television history entirely. According to the entertainment database AllMovie, the series came and went so quickly in early 1979 that it isn't even listed in some reference works, meaning that many television historians and encyclopedias simply don't acknowledge its existence at all. The TV movie Love Is Not Enough has fared no better in terms of cultural memory, remaining largely forgotten despite being the foundation for what would become the first weekly African-American family drama in television history. The fact that even the pilot movie has been lost to obscurity speaks to how little impact the entire Harris and Company franchise made during its brief existence. While other failed TV movies from this era at least get mentioned in discussions of television history, Love Is Not Enough has essentially disappeared from the cultural conversation, remembered by only the most dedicated television archivists and researchers. Fact 11. Directed by a Hogan's Heroes star. The pilot TV movie Love Is Not Enough was directed by Ivan Dixon, an actor who was best known to television audiences for playing Sergeant James Kinchlow, the radio operator and technical sexpert, on the popular World War II sitcom Hogan's Heroes, which ran on CBS from 1965 to 1971. Dixon had the distinction of being the only original cast member to leave the hit series before it ended, departing after the show's 5th season, despite Hogan's Heroes continuing for one more year, because the role had heightened his visibility, but did little to satisfy his creative needs beyond acting. His character was overshadowed by the flashier performances of stars like Bob Crane, Werner Klemperer, and John Banner, and Dixon was ready to move on to more fulfilling work behind the camera. By the time he directed Love Is Not Enough in 1978, Dixon had already been building a successful career as a television director, working on episodes of popular series like The Waltons, The Rockford Files, and Starsky and Hutch throughout the 1970s. Dixon was particularly interested in telling stories about the African American experience and had directed the controversial 1973 film The Spook Who Sat by the Door, based on a novel about the first black CIA agent who uses his training to organize urban resistance, which was pulled from theaters amid FBI pressure, but later gained cult status. Dixon's involvement in Love Is Not Enough and Harris & Company reflected his commitment to creating meaningful portrayals of black families on television, using his directing skills to help launch what would become the first weekly dramatic series centered on an African American family, even though the series itself would not survive long enough to fulfill that potential. Fact 12. TV critics confuse drama for unfunny sitcom. Harris & Company faced an unusual problem that contributed to its poor reception and rapid cancellation, as many television critics reviewing the show had difficulty understanding that it was actually a drama series and not a sitcom, leading them to judge it by completely the wrong standards. According to the Historical Dictionary of African American Television, this confusion among critics was widespread enough to significantly damage the show's chances of finding an audience, as reviewers kept waiting for jokes and punchlines that never came, then criticized the show for being an unfunny comedy rather than recognizing it as a serious dramatic exploration of family life. This confusion likely stemmed from the fact that television audiences in 1979 were only familiar with black families being portrayed in sitcoms like Good Times, What's Happening, and The Jeffersons, where humor and laugh tracks were the norm. When Harris & Company presented a black family dealing with real struggles in a dramatic format without any comic relief or studio audience laughter, critics and viewers didn't quite know what to make of it, because it didn't fit into any existing category they recognized for shows featuring African American casts. The hour-long format should have been a clear signal that this was a drama rather than a half-hour sitcom. But the novelty of seeing a black family portrayed in a serious, dramatic context seemed to confuse reviewers who had been conditioned to expect comedy. This critical misunderstanding meant that Harris & Company was never properly evaluated on its own terms as a dramatic series, with reviewers essentially penalizing the show for failing to be funny when it was never trying to be a comedy in the first place, creating an additional barrier to the show finding its audience. Fact 13. Created by an Oscar-nominated screenwriter. Harris & Company was created by Arthur A. Ross, a highly respected Hollywood screenwriter whose career spanned several decades and included some genuinely impressive credits, making the show's failure all the more surprising given his track record of success. Ross had co-written the classic 1954 science fiction horror film Creature from the Black Lagoon alongside Harry Essex, helping to create one of Universal Pictures' most iconic monsters that would become a staple of pop culture for generations. His work in television was equally notable, as he wrote numerous episodes for Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and even won an Edgar Allan Poe Award for the episode Thanatos Palace Hotel, establishing himself as a writer who could handle suspense and drama with skill. Just 1 year after Harris & Company's failure, Ross would receive an Academy Award nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay for the 1980 prison drama Brubaker, starring Robert Redford as a warden who goes undercover in his own corrupt prison to expose the brutal conditions and systematic abuse occurring there. The fact that Ross could produce Oscar-nominated work so close to the time of Harris & Company's premiere suggests that the show's failure wasn't due to lack of writing talent, but rather to the combination of bad timing, poor network support, and audience confusion that plagued the entire production. Ross also co-wrote The Great Race, a 1965 comedy starring Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, showing his versatility across different genres. With such an impressive resume of successful films and television episodes, Harris & Company stands out as one of the rare misfires in an otherwise distinguished career, a show that simply never got the chance to prove what it could have been with proper support. Fact 14. NBC. Canceled 16 shows that season, a record. Harris & Company's cancellation after just 4 episodes was part of a much larger bloodbath at NBC, as the network canceled a staggering 16 programs during the 1978 to 1979 season, setting what was reportedly the highest number of cancellations by a single network in one season at that time. This mass purge was announced on March 8, 1979, just 1 week before Harris & Company even premiered, when NBC revealed it was overhauling its mid-season schedule and pulling the plug on shows like Little Women, Brothers and Sisters, and Turnabout, among many others. The network was in complete disarray, desperately trying to find anything that would work in the ratings while simultaneously burning through programs at an unprecedented rate. This record-breaking cancellation spree reflected just how poorly NBC was performing during this period, as the network struggled to compete against ABC and CBS, and found itself in a seemingly endless cycle of launching new shows, watching them fail, canceling them within weeks, and then launching even more replacements that would also fail. The brutal approach meant that shows were given almost no time to develop an audience or find their footing, with network executives quick to pull the trigger on anything that didn't immediately deliver strong ratings. Harris & Company joined the growing graveyard of canceled NBC programs from this season, becoming just another casualty in what was turning into a historic disaster for the network. The fact that 16 shows could be canceled in a single season shows just how chaotic and unsustainable NBC's programming strategy had become under this level of desperation, with the network essentially admitting that the vast majority of its programming decisions had been complete failures. Fact 15. The show vanished so completely, it's never been released. Despite being a genuine milestone as the first weekly American TV drama centered on an African-American family, Harris & Company has never been released on DVD, made available through streaming services, or offered for legal download anywhere online, effectively making it inaccessible to anyone who wants to watch it today. The 4 episodes that aired in 1979 exist somewhere in NBC's archives, but the network has never shown any interest in making them available to the public, leaving this historic piece of television trapped in vault storage where it serves no cultural or educational purpose. Even the pilot TV movie Love Is Not Enough remains equally unavailable, meaning that the entire Harris & Company franchise has been completely erased from public access. This situation is particularly frustrating because the show represents an important moment in the history of Black representation on television, being the first attempt to present an African-American family in a serious dramatic format rather than through comedy. Researchers, historians, and people interested in Black cultural history have no way to study or appreciate what the show was trying to accomplish, making it impossible to evaluate whether the show's failure was truly due to poor quality or simply bad timing and network mismanagement. The complete unavailability of the series means that an entire generation of viewers has grown up never knowing that this groundbreaking show even existed, let alone having the opportunity to watch it and form their own opinions. While many obscure and failed shows from the 1970s have eventually found their way to DVD or streaming platforms thanks to collectors and nostalgia markets, Harris & Company remains stubbornly absent, making it one of television's most significant lost pieces of representation.